Meeting for Monday, June 19th, 2017 to order. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted?
Yes.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 is public appearances, public's opportunity to speak about any subject that's not a specific agenda item. Nobody tonight.
I don't have any sheets.
All right.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, we'll need you to sign a sheet at the back table there if you could, and then just come on up here at the table and
It's regarding an invoice that was done by the Public Works Department through J.J. Larson.
okay.
And I've been
Could you
Just-
identify yourself and your...
Doug Meat,
Okay.
and I have the lot at the corner of Nightingale and
If you
Parkview.
could just sit down, so that way you're on the camera too as well,
Sorry.
and that's fine. And then, go ahead and you can talk. Thanks.
So it's regarding the notification from the Public Works Department.
Okay.
And we've gone through this for multiple years and always received the notification and took care of the mowing, but there was a particular time from last fall where I never received the notification. I went to the, what are those meetings that you guys have on Mondays that you?
Public Works Committee.
Oh, the Public Works Committee. And they said, well, being that it was already put on the tax bill, that I would have to make the public appearance here at this meeting. So it's in regards to never properly receiving the notification, which was stated by J.J. Larson that because it wasn't sent certified mail or any other way, that there wasn't any proof that I did receive it.
Okay.
And so, you know, if it was an excuse that I wanted to use before, I would have used it many times in years past. But it truly was, you know, something that I did not receive, and therefore, that's what I would like to address from this invoice
If
here.
it's on your tax bill, that's from last year?
It's actually, yeah, it was from October, I think, 13th. Yes, October 13th was the invoice date.
Okay.
And so, at the end of October, it's automatically put on the tax bill, I believe. And so I didn't have much time to contest it because there wasn't even a Public Works meeting in between that time.
Okay. Gotcha.
So then it automatically got transferred, then I went to the Public Works and they said, you're at the wrong place. Well,
Okay.
that's nice that they told me to come to that.
Okay.
And then so here I am.
All right. I'm not sure what we have for a mechanism, but I think my suggestion would be if you could make sure that Matt and Lee get a copy of this, our village attorney and our
Okay.
administrator.
We're well aware of everything.
You've got it? Okay. Okay. And that's for, what was the amount?
The amount, well, let me check on the tax bill that I received, is $135.05.
Okay. And that's for mowing? Okay.
Correct.
What was your address? I'm sorry.
The actual address is Lot 148 Parkview.
Okay.
It's at the corner of Parkview and Nightingale.
Okay. All right. This is public comment, so we can't, do a lot right here, but you
That's
want to
what
get it
they
on record.
mentioned.
Okay.
Just best start
Sure.
here and go from here. So-
We'll start here. Thank you.
So what's the next steps that I need to do?
Any suggestion what we can go from here with this? I don't think we have a mechanism for backtracking then.
I mean, it was determined that the ordinance was followed properly, so.
Okay.
He's had many violations in the past, and
But never have used this particular complaint, that I never received it. And then they sent me with the letter of the invoice, a new method that they're using, which they did not use for my notification.
Okay.
we're doing that now because of what you're bringing forward to us. So we're just having a further affidavit, letter of affidavit, basically, just a witness saying that
It's an affidavit
it's
of
going in the
mailing that
mail.
says that the staff put it in the mail.
Doing it certified mail doesn't work well.
Okay.
It's higher cost and, if the the delivery mechanism of the certified mail, didn't we have issues with that, Lee, in the past, or?
What happens with the certified mail is that when people see it, it's a certified letter, they don't run to get it. And so that's why, in terms of trying to come up with a way of proving that we had sent it out, is that I suggested an affidavit, which is what we're doing now. I think that got implemented earlier this year.
But these are all driven by a complaint from a neighbor saying the grass is too long, so, if you have too long of a process, before you know it, it's a much bigger issue.
And I've offered to even do an email where I would reply and still go by that, and that has not been an option for me, because that would expedite things and reduce the cost.
Sure.
So it's not a matter of how many times it's happened, it's a matter of this time I was never notified and then billed for it immediately. That's the problem I have.
I mean, we could even you do an email and he doesn't respond, and it's just the timing of the whole thing. It just says that we need to send a letter. It doesn't say that is the notice.
Okay.
All
right.
I mean, he knows that the grass needs to be cut.
And it's on a schedule, which it is, by
Okay.
a landscaper, and this one was on a different schedule. And again, I've mentioned other ways to be notified, and nobody seems to want to do that, even though it would expedite things and help me out and help you out.
Sure.
So here we are.
Okay. I appreciate your time. I wasn't aware that you already notified, and, but,
Yeah, I went to the Public Works meeting,
Yeah.
but then they said, you're at the wrong place. So they told me
Okay.
to come there, and then that was for naught.
all right.
It's nothing.
As I mentioned, this is like public comment, so we're not going to solve the issue here tonight,
Right.
but thank you for bringing that up.
And then, so what are the next steps? What do I expect?
As far as that, I don't think there's anything more that we're going to be doing about that, but in the future, we're going to try other methods then of notification or whatever.
We're doing that. We're doing that now. Not as much as another method. It's just I guess to try to do it in a way that can be further proof that we sent it out. But
Sure.
Why can there not be anything done by this when there's no proof that it was even sent?
Well, there is proof that it was sent. There's an affidavit by someone on village staff.
No, that started
Right.
after mine.
No, he's saying
This was
what-
not on this
obviously.
one.
Okay.
So there's no proof.
All right. Was there any other individuals that got this type of situation, or just this person?
Not to this
Okay.
level.
All right. All right. I will look into this. It's the first, like I said, that I was aware of this, but thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay, anybody else for public appearances? I guess not. Okay. All right. Number 5 is discuss and consider the minutes of the regular village board meeting of, June 5th. Any comments or corrections?
I move to approve. Second.
Motion and second to
I
approve.
had one
Yep.
minor correction, I gotta find it here. One of the items, we actually had one person, oh, here it is, it's on 10, number 7, Plan Commission.
Okay.
I think it was 6 that voted for it and 1 abstained.
So what was the correct?
6 voted for and 1 abstained, not 7 voted for it. 1
Okay. So the math doesn't work.
abstained. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because we did have 6 and 1, that's okay.
I move to approve with that correction.
With that correction?
Yeah.
Okay. And second?
Second.
Okay. Any other comments or corrections? Okay, if not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Passes. Presentations to the board. We have the review of the 2016 audit with Amanda Bloomberg of Baker Tilly. Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
It's the blue one.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Amanda Blomberg. I'm with Baker Tilly, and I'm a firm director there. And I've actually been working on the village's audit. I just counted them for 18 years now, so been with the village for quite a while. So I'm happy to be here and talk about the 2016 audit. I see a lot of new faces around the table, so I'm sure this will be a bit of a learning process. So what I'm going to try to do is explain what's in front of you and then focus on what we think you need to know from a financial perspective, okay? So You have a couple of documents in front of you that have the binding on it. The thicker one is the financial statements. So that is a document, it's quite large, even for the village, and it has a lot of financial information for each of the village's funds in there. It can get a little bit overwhelming, so we're going to look to the handout that I gave you before the meeting today. It's a stapled color graph package, and that's what we're going to focus on as far as financial information. And I'm sorry my voice is a little cracky today, but the other document that Deb just handed out is called the Communication to Those Charged with Governance and Management. I'm assuming this is the first you've received these, so I recommend reading through this. What this has in it is information that we're required to report to the governing body as the auditor. It talks about internal controls, what we found. I'll make a notation that you'll find some internal control items in here that are consistently reported from year to year at the village, as well as a lot of other municipalities your size. So don't be alarmed. The language can be a little bit, direct, I guess, but that's the requirement of the auditing standards. There's nothing in here that is of, major concern. So I just invite you to read through it. And definitely contact Matt or Deb or me at some point, if more questions are raised regarding this document. But I won't focus on this today either, to try to keep this short for you. All right, so if you look at the graphs package that I said that I handed out tonight, let's start with that. If you have any questions, feel free to speak up and let me know. So the first page, page 1, and the next page, those will focus on the fund balance of the village's general fund. So the general fund is the main operating fund of the village. It has the majority of the tax levy going there, as well as administration, public works, public safety, recreation programs are all funded through that particular fund. So that is a highlight or a focus of the financial statements. And so page 1 talks about the fund balance of the general fund. And the fund balance is another name for equity or reserves. It's your assets minus your liabilities. It's whatever is left over. And so we take a look at this to see, well, how to measure the health of the general fund. And when the general fund is doing well, that's a good sign that the village, overall is in a good, healthy balance. So fund balance is divided into 3 different categories on this page. And so there's a small non-spendable piece that is representative of delinquent receivables and prepaids, basically assets that you can't liquidate, on a short-term notice. So that's only about $16,000. There's an assigned portion of $294,000, and what this is representing is funds that are to be used for next year's budget cycle, or 2017. And this $294,000 represents the payment in lieu of tax that the water utility pays to the general fund on an annual basis. And so it pays in, ahead of time for the next year's budget. So you get this every year. The rest of the fund balance is unassigned, and this is really what's available to be used for current year expenditures, or current expenditures, we should say, and that is just over $1 million. You'll see a pie graph here that breaks it down into your unassigned is 77% of your total fund balance for the general fund. The next page takes that fund balance and breaks it down a little bit differently. So you'll see some trend data here from 2013 to 16, and 16 being on the far right. So that's what we're focusing on as far as current year results. So your unrestricted fund balance is your assigned and your unassigned added together. So it's everything but the non-spendable. So that 1.3 million, when we compare that to the annual expenditures of the general fund, we get a percentage of 37.21%. That's a helpful ratio to just kind of give you an idea how much reserves we have on hand and how far can it get us through the year without any additional revenues. So basically, you can get through, several months of the year without any additional revenues. There's some benchmark information provided in the graph below. The Government Finance Officers Association, which is an advising type organization, recommends a minimum of 2 months, which is about 17%. So you can see that the village has consistently been over that recommended minimum over the last 5 years. Now the village itself has a policy to be between 20 and 30% of the subsequent year budgeted expenditures. So when we compare your expenditures or your fund balance to the budgeted expenditures for the following year, that would be the policy. The percentage here compares it to current year, so you just have to do a slight modification to that calculation. But assuming expenditures remain somewhat similar, that is, your ratio will be about the same. What you'll see here is that the village was very close to its policy, or within its policy, for the years 14, 15, looks like we have a typo here. It should be 12 through 16. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we have 15 in there twice. I apologize for that. But it should be, you'll see that 13, 14, and 15 you fell within the policy. 12 and 16 you're above that, which is not a bad place to be. It's just, you can make you have a little bit more flexibility as to what you do with those funds. You have a few extra funds on hand and you can decide how to handle those. Now the percentage went up this year. The general fund had a surplus of about $400,000. $200,000 of that was related to the identification and usage of fund balance in the debt service fund to offset some of the reserves that were there. So more tax levy got shifted to the general fund as a result, and that kind of boosted it up a little bit. The rest of the balance was really a combination of expenditures being under budget and actually recognizing some revenues over the budget. So a combination of a couple things caused that increase this year. Any questions on fund balance? So overall, this is, it's a positive place to be. Again, it affords you some flexibility in how to use those funds. Page 3 talks about GO debt, or general obligation debt. That general obligation debt is secured by tax levy. So this is a focus because there are statutory limitations as to how much GO debt you can issue. Again, you'll see some trending information here, 2016 being on the far right. And you'll see the amount of GO debt that's outstanding as of the end of the year. About 15.9 million is village related, 1.9 million is utilities related. One notation here is that out of that 15.9 that's on the village line, about 12.4 million of that is TIF related. So what that means is that the TIF is intended to repay that debt that's outstanding. So 3.5 million of that is really supported by the tax levy that goes to the debt service fund. So that's an important distinguisher. The utilities pay its own debt using the rates, customer charges that are charged through the rate system. If you go down to the middle of this page, the bottom couple of numbers here, you'll see that we have a GO debt capacity, and that's about $33.8 million. So again, I mentioned that was a statutory number. Your GO debt capacity equals 5% of the equalized value of the municipality. So as your equalized value goes up, so does your debt capacity. At the end of 16, the village was at 52% of its debt capacity. Now some recommendations or benchmarks here, you'll see various recommendations, but 50% is a really good place to be. That's very conservative. I've seen as high as 60 for more active, municipalities with active TIF districts, where they do issue more debt to fund some of those projects. Even up to 65 or 70% I've seen with very active TIF districts. But 52%, you'll see that overall, the percentage of outstanding debt compared to the statutory limit has trended down over the years. That's a combination of the equalized value going up, as well as either holding your debt steady or making payments without issuing a lot of new debt over the years. Page 4 is another look at general obligation debt. This takes into account what you're paying annually in principal and interest. So again, we have a 2016 column along with some trending information. You'll see that about 1.1 million in total was paid from village funds. So this is exclusive of water and sewer, just FYI. 1.1 million was paid in principal and interest in 16. About 881,000 of that was TIF related again. So the TIFs are generally supporting those payments that are needed to be made. 227, or the rest of that number, 227,000 is village related, and again, is supported by the tax levy. There's another ratio that's included here that compares, well, how much of our annual expenditures are debt related. And so this comparison is at 22.28%. And again, that's trended downward as well. So again, you can see that, compared to all of the expenditures of the village, the debt is not a huge piece of it. The recommendation here, bonding agencies will say, try to keep this at a maximum of 20%. The village has consistently been over that, but that's not unusual, again, when you have active TIF districts and you have debt outstanding for those. TIF 5 has a significant amount of debt that it's paying back on right now, and so that really drives that number up at this point. But again, nothing to be concerned right there. Any questions on debt?
I have a question.
Yes.
So the asterisk here excludes refinance of debt and payments on revenue debt. Explain how that affects 2016 versus 2015.
So you'll see we excluded refinance debt because that overinflates your annual payments because it shows up as principal and interest, or principal, will be inflated. So we take that out because it's kind of a in and out. We don't want to show a ton of principal being paid when you had an offsetting, debt issuance to offset that. So in 2016, there was not a refunding. In 15 and 12, there was. And so we, made adjustments to the expenditures to reflect that.
So why did this principal payment that was made between 2015 and 2016, it's pretty significant. So where did that come from? Why did you pay that down?
Which number are you looking at?
I'm looking at the
specifically?
369,000 as the principal amount for 2016. That's actually the amount that was paid, is that right?
No, 669,000 was paid in 16 on principal.
So we paid a lot more in 2015?
Yes, yes. Yeah, and many of the repayment schedules are set up, or maybe, to be heavier in one year than another, or it's possible that a debt was paid off in 15, so therefore there wasn't a payment required in 16. So that could explain the decrease. I don't know the details offhand.
And so, so would the refunding actually have affected that?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, let me take that back. It could affect it if the repayment schedule changed a lot.
That's what I was wondering. So that's why I'm curious whether that's really what's impacting this would be the refundings that may have occurred.
Yeah, I don't know offhand if, when that was refunded, if the repayment schedule was spread out over a longer number of years or not. I don't know that offhand.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? All right. The next few pages trend out the general fund and debt service fund revenues and expenditures. So this is just kind of interesting information to take a look at. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but what we would expect to see in these graphs that are below are kind of steady to maybe slightly increasing lines. So what I'll focus on are the big changes that you'll see here. And I did include some notes as to those. You'll see that the yellow line for taxes on the right-hand chart went up quite a bit in 2015, and that's a result of an increase in the tax levy. There was some room within the allowable levy limit to increase the levy, and that was done in 15. So that's the reason for that. Page 6 shows a chart of all of the sources of revenues in those funds, and you'll see that the tax levy, that the village is very dependent on the tax levy, to be a significant source of revenue for those two funds. Normally we see a little bit more intergovernmental for a lot of our clients. In this case, state shared revenues, transportation aids, they are not that significant for the village. Page 7 and 8 do the same thing with expenditures. You'll see some goofy looking lines here, and those are totally explainable due to the movement of the police department. Prior to 2015, the police department was a joint venture, and so it was funded by the yellow line that you see here, which was a transfer to another fund that tracked all of the police activity. Now, since the village runs its own department, that is now recorded in the public safety or red line, and you'll see kind of the corresponding increase and decrease there in 2015. So that explains. Normally we don't see such ups and downs, but that is the explanation there. Page 8 again has that pie chart and shows the distribution of expenditures among the categories, and this is pretty normal. Usually public works and public safety are some of the bigger chunks of this graph. Debt service can also be, in this case, it's about 23%. So this looks pretty normal.
I have a question.
Yep.
When I looked at what's online, this varies significantly from that. And maybe it was 2015, maybe the most recent that's online. So I'm wondering whether the debt service actually was placed into public works, because before we were spending about 74% on public safety and public works from our own website, and now this is showing it being significantly lower than that for both of them.
I don't know what's on the website. It could be, this includes debt service along with the general fund, so I'm not sure what is.
I don't think the one on the website has a debt service. So it
Okay.
must be building it in to the different.
Okay, so the debt service is just that blue or that aqua piece on its own. So it would not, its presence would then drive down the other percentages, I assume? If it's not included on the website.
I don't know.
What are you referring to on the website?
If you go into the financial section of the website, and there's a pie chart on there that will show that public works and safety together, I think, are around 74% of the budget.
Is that part of the budget document that's on the website?
I don't.
There's a pie chart in there of the breakdown of the general fund by
Yeah.
department. So that wouldn't have the debt included because that's a separate fund.
Okay, so that makes
So I'm
sense
not
when the
sure
debt
if
comes
that's
out.
what you're looking at.
The debt's out, then that would be pretty close to that, I think. Okay. All right, thank you.
Great. All right, the next few pages talk about the utilities. We've been focusing on the general fund and the debt, and so the utilities, as you know, water and sewer are enterprise funds. So there's a user charge, there's rates developed to make sure that you can recover your costs. And so it's important to watch the trends here to make sure that your rates are still sufficient and supportable. First of all, the first information that you'll see here is a summary of how much water was sold over the last 5 years. In general, I believe 2012 was very high. It was a drought year, I believe, and so we'll see usage go up during those years. We also see a general trending going down, as well as major customers are implementing conservation methods. As rates go up, they look to improve their efficiencies. But generally, 2013 and 14 were very similar in sales, and 15 and 16 were also very similar. Operating revenues are the next set of numbers, revenues and expenses. So this is where basically the user charges minus operation and maintenance, and as well as depreciation. And so the right-hand graph that you see below shows how these have trended over time. And basically, you do want your revenues to exceed your expenses, and that's been the case over the last few years. So that is positive. Now, the next page talks about how this factors into the rate of return. And the rate of return is what the PSC, who regulates the water utility, allows you to basically charge, or that's your goal when it comes to your rates. And so the PSC net income or operating income is going to be slightly different than the financial statement operating income because of specific regulatory rules that the PSC uses. So you'll see both financial statement operating incomes and PSC incomes at the top of page 10. And then we use this information to calculate what the actual rate of return was. Now, 5.5% is the authorized rate. Back in 12, you were above that, and then it's dipped below ever since. And so that's when it gets important. When you see it going quite a bit below the authorized rate of return, that's when it's important to take a step back and see, are our rates appropriate? Do we need to do a rate increase? There was a rate increase done back in 11, and then another substantial rate increase done in the fourth quarter of 16. And so you see some of the effects of that already in 16, and you'll see even more in 17 as the full year can take advantage of those that rate increase. So I would expect 17 is going to trend back up again. All right, the next page, final page on the water utility. One thing we like to look at is how much cash and investments are in that fund that are unrestricted. There are various debt covenants that are present that restrict funds, and you have to have them set aside for future debt service, for example. Unrestricted cash is kind of like your unassigned fund balance. It's there, it's available to be used, it's not tied up in anything. So what we do is we take, well, how much unrestricted cash do you have in comparison to your billing cycle? And there is about 6 to 7 months of unrestricted cash available. The minimum target that you want to have here is about 3 months, so the equivalent of a billing cycle. So you'll see that trended downward over the last few years. So I believe there was a conscious effort to use some of the cash on hand for some of the projects that happened last year, and that's what happened here. So you'll see that cash build up, and then you'll have it there to use for a project, and then the goal is to build it back up again. Some of the data down towards the bottom where we see net assets versus net plant. This is just a ratio comparing what you have in capital or infrastructure, water mains, water plant, treatment plant assets, and comparing that to your net investment in capital assets. And that's a fancy way to say what are our assets minus the debt we owe on those assets. And so right now you're about 69% funded, and the goal here is to be at least 50% funded. So you want to have about 50% equity in the assets that you own, or only about 50% leveraged by debt. So right now you're above that benchmark. by about 20%. The next couple of pages talk about the same things about the sewer utility, except that sewer is not regulated by the PSC, as you probably know. So here, we compare the operating revenues to the operating expenses, and you'll see this is a little bit closer. Again, revenues have continually been above expenses, which is good. Note also that the expenses are really driven by what MMSD charges to the village, and so the village also has a clause in place that, you know, basically you can adjust your rates as MMSD adjusts their rates to you. So it's important just to keep on top of those and make sure that your, you know, revenues are exceeding those expenses going forward. Page 13, again, takes a look at the unrestricted cash and investments. About 7.5 months on hand of unrestricted cash for the sewer utility. Again, the minimum target's about 3 months. So sitting about the same as a water utility. And then the investment in the plant down below, you'll see a 63% ratio. Again, that recommendation is to be about 50% or above. So nothing specific to note here for sewer. The last page is just a summary of the 3 TIF districts since they were created. So you'll see a summary of all the sources and uses of funds since the creation dates of each of those TIF districts. TIF 5, down towards the bottom, what I like to point out here is that you'll see the debt outstanding for each of the TIFs. So some of the bottom numbers here. So TIF 5 has $10 million in GO debt outstanding. There's some fund balance there. So what we have to recover until the TIF closes is about $9.3 million. Now with that said, the increment that came in was over $750,000 in 2016. And in 2017, it's expected to be $988,000. So that is growing a lot. And so it's, you know, this TIF, I'm sure Ellers works with you, you know, does projections for you to see if you're going to cash out, if you're going to, you know, if that TIF will be able to pay for itself in the end. Just a quick, you know, calculation says it'll take about 10 years, you know, at the max, you know, assuming no new projects, to repay the debt that's outstanding for TIF 5. TIF 6, as we know, is in a little bit worse shape. That one probably is not going to pay for itself, you know, unless a big development comes in. And so I know that the village management has been aware of this for a while and been levying extra taxes to help offset some of this cost. But it will be something that will, you know, as this TIF gets older and close to its dissolution date, may need to have additional resources directed toward it. One thing that can be done is TIF increment sharing. I'm sure, again, Ellers has, you know, spoken to you about most, you know, those options. TIF 7 is the one that's downtown. It is doing well as well, and it actually projects to pay off its outstanding debt in the next couple of years here. So it's a good place to be. All right. Any questions?
Any questions for Amanda? Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay. Item number 7 is unfinished business, update on village properties. There's some information in your packet if you get what Alan is here. Looks like we had talked to some real estate people and to Andrew Homburg, is that correct, Matt?
Yes, Andrew Homburg, Kyle Broom, Ruda Bush, depending on the parcels. So the well parcel and the lift station parcel, since those will likely be residential, we talked to Kyle Broom about those. Yep. And then the parcel adjacent to the municipal services building, Aaron touched base with Ruda Bush and Homburg on those. So.
Okay.
Any questions on the memo?
Questions?
Ruda Bush is here to, if you have any questions for them, to discuss the municipal services building lot.
Well, do we know when the work is going to be done to demolish that? I mean, I know that was kind of left a little open-ended when the bid was awarded. When is that going to be done?
There was a pre-construction meeting last week. What's the timeline, JJ?
It could have started as early as today. I think the weather threw them off a little bit, but they're hoping to get it done very soon.
Okay. So we can put it up for sale then?
Shouldn't be long. Once they get started, it should be a really quick project.
So what's the process that we have to do to get that one up for sale?
I guess just authorize it with the sale price and who you'd like to list it with.
Okay.
If there's anything else, I don't know.
No, there would just be a indication from the board that you intend to sell it, and then you just be a regular seller. And I think the biggest thing is to decide who you want to handle the sale.
Sure.
How do we typically make a decision like that? Do we have a list of people we've worked with in the past? Or?
There's you could ask for a request for proposal. You could simply go by the people that we've worked with in the past. I mean, there's any number. We're not locked into a specific way to do it.
Okay. I mean, RFP sounds good. I mean, just put it out there. If somebody's interested in listing it. Does that sound good? All right.
Do we want to make a motion?
Yeah. Good, Rico?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, is there a preference for
Yeah.
local?
Preference, I
Those
think
kind
it'd be
of.
local, yeah.
Right.
So they know the area, and they know.
Sure.
They're already working with other potential
Okay.
clients.
All right. So put on
What's
our,
the, some things to consider. I mean, are we looking to sell it to make the most or to get rid of it, or what's the goal?
right. I don't think we need to do a fire sale. I see what I mean, a realtor would typically do like a listing presentation to tell you what they can reasonably expect to get for that.
I mean, that's kind of what we have in the memo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, I guess you can put out an RFP and people can come and give us their impression or just send a memo what they think they could list it for. I mean, they wouldn't have to sit here and talk to us, I would think. If they said it's worth this much, could sell it this quickly.
I mean, that's what we have from Kyle right here.
Yeah. Okay.
If you,
Any other thoughts or?
Question,
Yep.
are we talking only about the North Main Street parcel?
Yeah, for now.
This is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, I agree, we should do it local if we can, put it in the paper, whatever, as in the Herald. Just put it out
it's
there.
kind of hard to put an RFP in the paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you just normally put them online, or,
We haven't really done, I don't know if we've done one of those for real estate. We put on our website.
Do we need to do an RFP?
No,
There
we
isn't
don't.
really a requirement.
You only need to bid a
something
project
like
if
this.
it's construction over
Okay.
25,000. So if
Yeah.
you want to
I don't know.
have someone local do it, you can assign it to them.
I'm okay with that. What do you guys think?
I mean, I'm fine with it too, just,
Well, like a couple locals, if there's a couple.
Well, you only
Yeah.
list it with one, you can't list it with a couple.
I know, no, we can offer a couple and
Oh.
let them present it to us, right?
There, what is their present though? I mean, there's-
One might be a better presentation of what the land's worth more over the other and how they present it.
Well, the
I don't know.
Oh, the
Yeah.
market's gonna determine that. I mean, that's the reality of this. It's just a matter of if
Yeah.
someone is able and has moved parcels.
And he gave quite a
homes.
wide range, 40 to 60, I believe, right? So that's a healthy range, but we can start, like you said, it's not a fire sale, we can start high,
yeah.
let the market decide what it's worth. If we get an offer, we can entertain it. Should we, I guess I would put a motion to list with the person that did the analysis and list it at 60,000 and see what offer we get. I don't know.
Once
You guys
the-
agree?
Once the.
Once it's available, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
We don't want to sell it once,
Very well.
got diggers on it, but,
Right,
yeah. But we're, yeah.
so probably end of July at the latest.
Well, we could enter into I guess the motion, Jim, would be to enter into a listing contract with Kyle Broom. And with the idea that it would be a sale of up to 60,000.
Yeah, we'll list it for 60 and entertain offers.
Is there a second?
OBO.
I have a question.
Yep.
Why do you say it's 60?
60? Because that's the top of the range.
Okay.
But, I mean,
For an empty lot?
for an empty lot, yeah.
For that particular lot, where the well house is, that was
Okay.
kind of the range that we were.
That's a small lot. Do you think that's
Okay.
high or low?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, the
That's the
houses,
reason I was asking
houses to
for
the left and right
opinion.
are about $200,000. Realistically, I think we'll probably get 50, but let's let the market decide.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think, isn't the land in a house usually worth about 1/4 of what you end up building a house for? I don't know. Probably might even end up
Quarter,
40.
third, yeah.
A third, yeah,
Yeah,
you know.
it depends on the location. And
Could we get a second to Jim's motion?
is there a second for Jim?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Just to get this thing.
All right, motion and a second to assign the listing to Kyle Broom of Badger Realty, and at the price range of 60,000 to start.
And as last time we mentioned, we also had contact with our assessor on, you know, kind of a hypothetical assessment for each of those properties. And their thought was 45,000, but that was plus or minus 15%. So
For which one?
for the well property.
Oh, it was 45, okay, maybe I'm thinking wrong then.
Yeah.
45,000
Plus or minus 15%.
Okay, I guess I was thinking of the different property. All right.
I would put it up about 60 with the 15%.
Yeah.
I mean,
You want to put it at
You can always
50? Do
read
you
it.
want to start at 50 or do you want to start at 60? We don't want to scare people away too much.
No, I mean.
What do you guys think?
I don't think 60 is unreasonable for a residential lot,
I don't either.
Okay,
you know.
good. All right, let's
All
go
right.
with 60.
I guess we have motion and a second for $60,000. It's the initial listing price for that lot on Main Street. Any other comments or? Yeah.
To me, it seems premature to vote on this when we don't know what the terms are going to be with Mr. Broom.
Okay. Would you rather have,
It seemed to me that we should know what the terms are before we say we're going to list with this.
what he's looking for a commission and that kind of thing?
That's why I would propose that we actually look at doing an RFP to see what would be the most favorable, commission to be paid on a property. And instead of just saying we're going to list with someone and be at the mercy of whatever they're going to charge.
Any thoughts on
Well, we can specify the commission, just state commission up front in our motion.
and make it a 3% commission or whatever they typically?
Standard commission.
I mean, so we're
Well,
not,
if you have people competing for it, they'll give them more competing price and commission.
Mhm.
That's the reason I was bringing it up.
I see.
okay.
Is there anybody else local? I mean,
There's-
if we wanted to present just local.
I think, like, to Mick's point, I guess if we don't put out an RFP, we're not gonna know. I have no issue signing it to Kyle, but I think an RFP might be more the due diligence route, if we put it. We have never done this before either, so I'm not sure.
Well, I think you're just generally asking, you're saying, here we have a lot.
Yep.
And this is what a lot consists of. And so we're asking for the best, what terms are you willing to sell this lot for the village? And what would you guess, or what would you, and ask for a price? I mean, I think you're going to want to make it as comprehensive as possible.
Sure.
You look at a property like that, there isn't a whole lot of value for an agent, I don't think, to, if he's getting the average 6% on $50,000, you're not talking a lot of money. I mean, how many people are even going to want to put a bid to price it? Maybe we should have a maximum of 6% as an example of commission rate, or whatever we decide that might be. At $50,000, the guy's going to do a couple $1,000s worth of work.
Right.
I mean,
Which I think brings up the point whether we should be putting North Main with South Lawn Estates when we get ready to do that. So then we have two properties, we have a more sizable amount for someone to be out actually doing the listings and having, being willing, I think, to put more effort into it.
I guess that's a valid point too. If you have more lots to sell, maybe you'd have a more aggressive realtor. Like I said, this is new ground. I guess if the motion and the second want to withdraw, and we can talk about.
What have we done in the past? Have we just
This
awarded
is new
people?
stuff.
Well, in the past, there was a property owned that the village purchased, and at that time, the village president pretty well dictated what was going to happen.
Uh-huh.
And so there have been different ways to do it. I mean, there's collegial here. There was, Lee, I want this sold, and this is who's going to do it.
Okay.
And I can operate within those parameters.
Right.
And I prefer to have.
So, and Jim, the best way I can put it is that there's no, I mean, this doesn't happen very often, and
Mhm.
we've kind of used different methods.
Okay. Well, we want to get it done. I guess there's no emergency to get it done. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And I'm
But
looking,
yeah, an RFP for the well and the lift station lot together probably makes.
I don't know if you need to call it an RFP, but you do your due diligence, find us, use your brain and find us 2 realtors and present the 2 best local people, and then maybe we can decide based on their commission and whatever other criteria you decide, and then present them to us, and we'll pick out of 2 or 3 or 4 realtors. Does that sound good? I don't know if you need to do a formal RFP, but
Yeah.
do
I'd be
it like
concerned-
it was your property, right? And then present it to us.
I'd be concerned that someone comes in and says, well, I'll sell this property, these 2 properties for $1,000 a piece, but if they put no effort towards that,
Yeah,
are we money ahead? Not at
Yeah.
all, because we still own the property.
yeah.
Local as like the realtors from Cottage Grove, or local that they have an office here?
Preferably both. What do you guys think?
I frankly don't care. I want the best deal for the village, so.
I do.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, this is not something we've done since I've been on the board of selling stuff, so.
and we have a number of properties. Like Rack 4, wasn't it?
We have a bunch of outlots, but that's.
Outlots.
And just as an aside, we're going to be making a report to the Plan Commission. We talked about, we're going to start there and give you a report on outlots. So everything you wanted to know about outlots next week.
Okay.
Okay,
Jim, do you want to withdraw your motion?
Sure.
Yeah.
Withdraw.
And who was the second?
I just seconded it.
Okay, so I'm going to do it. And get some information from a couple of realtors.
So then the new motion would be to, I don't even, we don't want to call it RFP, what is it, just a, because it's not, it's a request for services, really.
I think we may be wanting a request for qualifications, so that we would be asking people in the community to provide us with their qualifications, and then staff could take a first review of that, come back with a recommendation, perhaps based on that.
Sure.
So an RFQ?
I'm thinking that would be a good idea to do. And I think you would need some criteria to work with, like length of term, whether there'll be a sharing of commission, with another realtor that may bring it forward, or if it's going to be a deal where just this realtor is going to
Right.
be selling the property. We need to put a little bit of meat on this, I think. Not a whole lot, but a little bit, so that we know what we're going to be agreeing to.
Okay.
Nick, you want to make that motion?
I'd make a motion that we direct staff to do a request for qualifications for a Wisconsin real estate agent to represent the village on the sale of the North Main Street parcel and the South Lawn Estates parcel, and that staff bring back its recommendation as to one or more real estate agents that we would consider.
It's reasonable, I'll second that.
I second.
Did you? Okay. All right, so motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, go ahead. And if not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? All right. Motion passes, and then, what we have here? We're talking about the only other thing I think we were looking at was the outlots and the parcels over in Progress Drive, rather, next to the municipal service building. You'll see some memos in there regarding those properties.
Kyle and Tom, if you want to come forward here.
So hi everyone, my name is Kyle Adams. This is Tom Phillips. We are with Rudabush Commercial Investments. Some of you may know us. We are the commercial real estate broker for the Cottage Grove Commerce Park lots. So what I'm handing you out today is just sort of a little more in depth based upon the memo that Aaron had sent. So we talked previously and he questioned, asked us what we thought the lots might be worth in the Progress Drive property. And for those of you that don't know, we also worked with the village when you purchased both the lots on Progress Drive and the building itself. So that's a little bit of background. This is what I'm handing out right now, and Tom, you can take it from here.
Sure. So again, we had worked with the village on the initial purchase of the property from Swanson. At that time, we were focused on the building, but the Swanson family also owned the two adjacent vacant parcels. Their preference was to include those in the sale. There was some thought about future uses of that property for the village, and that it would be a good time to get control of those. And I don't know if that's changed, or you're looking at all alternatives. But the bottom line is the purchase price of those lots was about $1.50 a square foot. It was a real good purchase price at that time to pick up the extra 3.5 acres. So what Kyle and I did, we looked at the market. This is a little different park from our history with the Commerce Park. It's more of an industrial-based park. The Commerce Park has higher development standards, more setback. It's a higher quality development park, higher standards than in the business park, which would be more of an industrial metal type building. Looking at comps, we've put a land value in it at $3 to $3.50 a square foot is what we're seeing. And I think that's been reinforced with Hamburg, who's developed the park, and looking at what other sales have been to Clausen and other users out there. They haven't had a lot of activity in that park, from what I understand recently.
Right.
We're tough competition.
The biggest thing recently was the storage units, I think.
Right. So, real quick summary here. I mean, we're able to, if you want to get into more details on where we pulled those comparable properties, both ones for sale and for lease. We can go into as much detail, or for sale or sold. We can go into as much detail as you would like, but frankly, here for questions.
I just have a comment, and that is, at some point, we may want to do this as a closed session discussion in terms of setting terms and conditions on how we want to proceed with these lots. The board has that option. Rick and I have already talked about this. I'm simply recommending, my position on these things is that I want the village to be in as good a position as a potential buyer. And the potential buyer won't sit down and say, well, here's how I calculated this. So just give that some thought in terms of whether that would be an option in the future.
Lee, does that have to be an agenda item to go into closed session?
Yeah. So it could be on the next agenda or whatever. One question I had, looking at the last sentence here, I guess talking to Mr. Hamburg, he also noted the village will have lower carrying costs than he does on his vacant parcels. Is that because we don't have holding costs? I mean, it's not really
Taxes.
Costing us anything?
Real estate taxes
Okay.
is the main.
All right. You could table this to the next board meeting then and put it on the closed session to discuss a strategy for if we want to do this, how we want to do it. I mean, any thoughts on that?
Well, I have thoughts. I really don't like going into a closed session unless it's really, really needed. I guess I just don't see it here. I mean, we would be discussing a parcel of land that even if we decide to sell it, I would assume we're going to let the market bear, bring us the price. I mean, we're not going to, something this size, we're probably not just going to I don't know. I would, I think we would
do
a
closed
more
session when we
in-depth-
get an offer.
We would do more in-depth analysis, I think, before we actually sell it, at least I would hope we do. And then if we're willing to go ahead and do that, then maybe we go into closed session, but it seems to me to be very premature to do that.
As far as future needs for the village before we
Well-
sell it, is that?
Well, future needs is something I don't think we would be discussing in closed session.
I agree.
What we'd be discussing in closed session would be issues actually dealing with maybe the value we're putting on it, terms we would want to discuss.
Who we might sell, use as a broker to sell.
Well, I think that, I'm glad to hear that we do seem to be thinking along the same lines. I mean, I think that if you're going to go into closed session, it's a different issue if you're talking about, do you want to sell this? And what do you see it being used for in the future? I mean, I think those are properly open session items because it really deals with the village facilities. I think that when you get into the discussion of, okay, we have these lots, here are the terms and conditions, this is how much we'd be willing to sell it for. Don't even bother to bring one to us if it's this. I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think that you can discuss in closed session. So.
Right, before we spend more staff and professional time, we have to decide, do we want to sell it? And I don't
Yeah,
know that there's
that's
a
the first
unanimous
question.
consensus here on the board as far as that.
Yeah.
And Jim, I think you were, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you were going to say that, or we could wait until there was an offer and then discuss that
Then go in
offer.
closed session, yeah. So do you want to, what do you think? Do we first decide that question number one?
I think first we decide if we want to sell it, and I'm not sure we have all the information to make that decision at this point. So I mean, I'd be fine with tabling it, and then if you say, if an offer happens to come along, I guess then we consider it.
Can I make this suggestion, if you do table it? Can you tell staff what else you need so that we can actually do something at the next meeting, whether it's open or closed session, but, I mean, what other information are you looking for? You've got 4 paragraphs here. How can we supplement that?
Right. Any thoughts on what we want to get from staff?
I think what I'd like to see would be analysis of what staff feels the village's needs will be over, let's say, a 5-year period of time. Is there going to be a need for this property? Is there, I mean, that's the big question in my mind. Is there really a need for it or not? If there is a need, then what is it? And I think then we can evaluate it. If there's not a need, tell us.
We can take a guess, but it's not going to be,
Right.
I mean, there's a reason why there are certain facility studies done at a much, larger scale, and it's a reason that they cost what they do.
That was in
Well,
last year's
architects and
budget for
engineers.
those of you that weren't on the board, and.
But yeah, we'd be happy to take a guess,
Yeah.
but
Okay. I'm
I
fine.
might not like the guess, or it might not even be worth, I don't know.
Right. I mean, you need to put from your various department heads to even formulate a kind of a guess, I suppose.
Can I, as an aside, and it's a different question that's on here, are we, assuming that the village board is not going to meet in the first week of July, it means that we'd have a longer period of time then to put together
Fair enough.
a report.
Yeah.
I think the next meeting would be the 17th. So,
We could wait till the 17th and then see what we're gonna, are we okay with that?
So would we be having everybody kind of prepare their thoughts?
Yeah, I think that would give everybody a long enough time to get their, and keep in mind, they're not long-range facility planners, but they are department heads, and they know what their needs would be to a degree, so that would give them more time to formulate that.
I mean, the difficult aspect of this is it's not just that, there's 10,000 square feet of unused space in the municipal services building, so what goes in there, and how do we decide that?
Okay,
Yep.
my question to you, Matt, is, and then are the department heads are gonna get together with you and say, this is what we see in the next 5 years, next 10 years? Or are we looking just 5 years?
I would say no more than 5,
No more than 5? Okay,
because it just gets more complicated then.
all right. So if it's the 5 years, and they're gonna report to you, then you're gonna bring something to all of us?
Yeah, we can do our best. I mean, it's not our expertise, so, as long as that's understood.
I just wanna know how it works.
Yeah, this is kind of.
The board again.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess any information they provide is more than what we have now.
Yeah.
Right, now we don't even know what we don't know.
So,
Yeah.
Just know what you think.
Right.
All right,
So-
motion to table. Wanna make a motion?
do we want to make a motion to direct the village staff to,
Bring us their information as far as what they feel their long-term needs will be.
Best you can do in-house.
Yeah.
so are we all, all three of us making? What was,
Direct village staff to, at the July 17th board meeting, give us their best analysis.
I make a motion to do that.
Okay. Second? All right, motion and a second to direct village staff to give us their best in-house analysis of their facility needs at the July 17th village board meeting. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Before we move on, Jack, let's go back to the lift station property. Aaron
Sure.
just pointed this out to me. We will need to get that wetland delineation updated.
Okay.
So,
That's the starting point for that. I don't think we can do much until that's done. Is it?
Yeah, Carpsey said there's flexibility in adjusting the environmental corridor, but we just need current information to verify
Okay.
that. I mean, we know where the stream is. MSA has a report that shows us where the floodplain is. It's just a question of wetlands on the property. The original plat did show a small one in that location, so it's, did it grow, did it not grow?
And with the wetland issue, I'd say that's where you start before you even talk to a realtor, just to get that documentation. Is that,
So do you need a motion then to, or would you be hiring a third-party person to come in and do that? Do a
we would
wetland
have
study?
MSA do it unless directed otherwise.
there are engineers on retention.
So do you need a motion to do that, or is that something that's already in your budget?
I mean, as long as it's understood as part of, selling these lots, that we would do the due diligence on that.
Right. And you just see it in the vouchers at some point that we spent the money for MSA.
Do we really need a third party to look at that?
Well, how else would we do it?
But he was talking about, he was asking about having a motion to do a third party, and then, I would think as the staff would be able to come up with what they see the needs to be for it.
Like if a person was selling it, what would a person do? They would just put
So
a
a
real
company like a Stantec or some environmental firm would need a surveyor. I'm not familiar.
So they can properly represent it.
Yeah, I don't think the DNR will accept our
Okay, all right.
analysis, so.
Okay.
I can promise you, they won't accept it.
Okay, and, yeah, we're not selling it to the DNR, we're selling it to
No.
somebody in the public, but I see what you mean. We have to get the
But the
report.
DNR is quite protective of its wetlands. And so if you just said, well, we sold this, and Jim said it was okay.
Yeah.
Then
No, I'm in
they'll be
trouble.
unhappy.
No,
Yes.
I'm in trouble, okay.
So if
I don't want to be in trouble.
No, if you involve wetland, you might as well start with the DNR because nothing will happen if they don't approve it. so.
Good, okay.
Okay. Fair enough. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're on to, I guess, item 8A. Discuss and consider renewal operators license applications for licensing year July 2017 to June 2018.
There's some renewals and some new ones, right? So
I think both, yeah. And, some are, renewal and new, so we have separated the renewal and the new ones. We have the new renewal ones first. Any comments, questions, anything from the police department on these, chief?
No, they passed.
They passed your inspection. Okay. All right.
Do you want to take these in a bunch then?
I think we can take them as a bunch, otherwise it gets a little tedious.
Save time.
So yeah, if somebody wants to make a motion on renewals.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that the 3 renewals that are listed in the packet for these individuals from the farm, 1855 Saloon and Grill, 2 other individuals.
Okay. For approval. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve the renewal operator license applications for licensing year July 2017 to June 2018. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Okay, next item is discuss and consider the new operator license applications for licensing years July 2017 to June 2018. Any issues from the police standpoint here, Chief?
No.
Okay. All right, any questions and thoughts from board members?
All right, then making a motion for the new licenses for the 4 individuals listed in the packet
Okay.
for the coming year.
All right, I'll second that. Any other discussion? Well, we have a motion and a second. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. 8C, discuss and consider release of revised Phase 4 of 4th edition to West Lawn Estates. You'll see the map in your packet and developer agreement and some other documentation, but I'll let Aaron talk about this a little bit and what was all involved with this.
So we actually got that documentation.
This is a continuation of something that was originally approved in February, and there were some changes that were worked out between the developer and the village engineer. And so they asked that we approve this revised Third Amendment to Agreement, 4th edition to West Lawn Estates. We do have the letter of credit. We do have all of the payments that are listed on the second page of the revised Third Amendment. And I did include a phase map this time so that we knew what we're talking about here. In my cover memo to you, I gave you a history of the different phases. And so I would request that the village board would approve this release of revised Phase 4 of the 4th edition to West Lawn Estates.
What exactly did they change?
Well, they thought that there was a lot that wasn't included. And when I go back and I look at it, I thought that that lot was included. So that clarifies that. Also, they have done some work, and so the letter of credit is actually about half of what it was before. So that's really the change.
And then I see on this, we have another outlot for the village to maintain?
Right.
How did we make that their responsibility?
Well,
as a condition to change what they want to change?
I've talked to the Homburgs about that. I wouldn't say that they embraced.
I can't imagine, but we do.
But I think that if we're going to do that, Troy, that's a great question. I think if we're going to do that, we're going to have to probably do that from the start of the developer agreement. This is like the 4th phase. I think it's hard to do it midway through. I mean, this development is almost done, but I do think that the fact that if the village decides to do it that way, and after we talk with Plan Commission and give a report on the outlots, then developers are on notice. But that's
the other option is rather than have them maintain it, just make the lots larger, so that the property owners butt up to one another rather than have this open space. And again, I'm not suggesting it for this. I'm just saying moving forward. I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, Lee, that it's part of the beginning process. They know what they're going to have to do this. So,
well, and in talking with the village engineer, and as an engineer, I'm a good lawyer, so I'm not sure if I'm going to translate this correctly, but as I understood it, there were some reasons why he felt that the village should have some outlots that they control, and that's going to be part of his report.
I just asked him to provide a pros and cons, you know, why,
Yeah.
why would you want to? What would be the-
No, the dredging is.
Right.
Yeah, because there's stormwater implications, and, but they have worked with other communities and some have different arrangements, so we'll hear that.
And that's the other side, is what do other communities do? I mean, we don't have to decide this in a
Well,
vacuum.
it's not like we're going to be the only community that requires this.
Right.
So I think that's important, you know, because usually this is what you hear from the developers.
Yeah.
Nobody else requires us to do this. Well, that's not true. And, you know, Mick can back me up on this, as some of the rest of you can. I know that's not true, and so we can look into it.
Okay. But I would agree that it's just started at the beginning of the conception and follow that all the way
Yep.
through. Okay.
All right, any other discussion or questions on what you see in your packet here in the 4th edition to West Lawn? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the release of revised Phase 4 of 4th edition to West Lawn with the changes made by council and engineering and agreed to apparently by the developer.
Second?
And could you just amend that then with direction to the village clerk and the village president to sign the necessary documentation, which is prepared, and they have it tonight.
Okay, and I'll accept that amendment, that I'll take care of the documentation.
Second.
Okay. All right, motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion passes.
Jack, I'd like to make a request to take an item out of order.
Sure.
My report, I was going to report on the bidding of the traffic lights at School Road and N.
Oh.
And with a representative from MSA to discuss, or to update on that. So Brad, you can.
Yeah.
So we can, we're paid here by the hour, so we can get.
Yeah,
out of here.
might as well get them up here then.
Should have been first.
All right.
Good evening, guys. Filling in for Mike Maloney tonight, but I wanted to get back to you guys and give you an update. Now, Thursday, we accepted bids for the County Highway End and School Road project. I received one bid, and the bid came in at $746,000, which is above budget. So the idea is to amend the scope of the project to try to bring the thing
Okay.
back into budget.
With the urbanization.
And that was the only bid received, so the other, the other option, the village wouldn't have to accept the bid and you can wait, rebid, but, that obviously affects the timing of.
The cost probably won't go down.
How far over budget was it?
Well, I mean, I believe it was a couple $100,000 over budget.
Yeah, I think
So,
So,
it's one of those things where, the village has a right to approve, reject any bid, any public bid, and, so I think it makes sense to revise things a little bit and basically scale it back. Ultimately, you guys are going to be improving that, urbanizing that corridor in the future.
Right.
And it's just a question of, I think we can scale it back a little bit and try to reel that in and get you guys a lower price going forward.
What was the unexpected, what quantities were higher than expected?
Sure, I think in the end, some of the quantities as far as the earthwork component, and there's some storm sewer components that were a little higher than expected, and right now it is a competitive bidding market.
Sure.
It's different than what I remember back in the 08 and 09 days. It's just a different game right now, and I think we can make a few adjustments for you guys and rebid it, bring it back at the July 19th meeting. Is that correct? That's a Monday?
Yeah, assuming we cancel the July 3rd one.
Assuming you cancel it. Typically, what we would do is we'd re-advertise the bid, and you have to advertise it twice, so 2 consecutive weeks. So
Okay.
ideally, the 19th would be a better timeline to bring the bids back.
Yep.
But what we would look to do is basically bump the completion date back for the project, if it's been a month, an extra month, basically give the contractor
Originally, we were looking at the end of, August, give them an additional month because we're rebidding.
Sure.
And see what we can do here.
All right, so with just stoplights, it wouldn't have been such a big deal, but the associated underground and,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the goal is to provide a median down the corridor, kind of like what you see up at the Commerce Park area. And
Yep.
so that median, what we can do is look at trying to tighten that up a little bit and do just the bare minimum of what we need to accommodate the traffic signals. The one that we bid out had a, it sets you up really nice, as you go down, but we can scale that back a little bit and try to bring things in on budget. It's not that, it's just basically you can do those extra areas in the future as you go forward. It's just part of the plan down the road. It's just a little less median and try to tighten things up a little bit, try to bring that in.
okay.
If we do end up scaling things back and deciding to do something down the road, how much are we talking about in terms of extra costs by waiting might we encounter? I mean, is that something you can guess?
It's hard to delineate what the extra cost may be down the road. I don't think that it's going to be one of those things you look back on and say, gosh, I wish I would have done that extra few hundred feet of road back in 2017. I think, I think it's a matter of at this point trying to keep things within the budget range. As far as
Just so I understand, or conceptually, if we look at what we've got on Damascus and Cottage Grove Road, that seems to be a wider median than what we have right here on Highway N and Cottage Grove Road. Or are you talking from going one to the other? Is how much smaller is it? How big is it now, and how much are you looking to scale it down?
Off the top of my head, as far as median widths, I don't have something. So what is it up by the Commerce Park? It's probably
10, maybe? Well,
maybe a little wider than that, maybe 15 or something, give or take. So let's just say, this area on the signalized intersection, right up at the signals, it's going to be relatively narrow. I mean, it could be 6 to 7 feet wide in that range up at the signals. And then as it comes out, because you need that space for the left turn bay, as you come out of the left turn bay, then it gets wider. So if you kind of look at some of those intersections, they have the wider median and then it chokes down to create that left turn bay. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it'll be as narrow as it needs to be up at the approach of the intersection.
I think it's like a crosswalk minimum. If somebody's going across,
Yes.
they need that little bit of
There's
what
a
they
minimum
call
of
a
about
refuge
6
space.
feet, give or take.
Okay.
5.5 to 6 feet is what they require. And that'd be what they would minimize it. And so what we'd be building is, instead of this really, the longer median, we would look to tighten that up and use some more pavement markings at this time and try to delineate those lines. And then someday you guys would be able to, as you do more of the sections of the road, you guys will be able to develop that median in lieu of those pavement markings.
Yeah, that's.
Brad, procedurally then, are you asking the board then to reject these bids and then rebid the project?
When I talked to Mike this afternoon, he had suggested that come back to the meeting and you can, the July 19th meeting, and you can reject the bids under this, what we received on Thursday, and basically you could decide to accept the new bids.
So authorize a new scope of work, sort of.
Basically. Does that make sense, Lee?
When it's not on the agenda.
Well, it does kind of. I mean, I understand what you want to do, but it just seems like either we accept or we reject these bids, and then it sounds like, and again, this probably reflects my lack of engineering expertise, but if you're talking about having to shave like a couple $100,000 off of this thing, that seems like it's going to be a pretty significant change of scope.
Yes, it is a change of scope as far as the geometrics and basically just tightening up the footprint of the project.
Yeah.
So
at this point, maybe just reject this bid and.
Well, I guess at this point I would table this if it's, and then we'll talk with Mike.
Well, I mean, there's nothing to table. It's not on the agenda.
Okay.
It was just information we got late. It was late in the week. It wasn't.
Okay.
We weren't even planning on having it on the agenda. So
This was part of your report, you said, right?
Yeah, I was just reporting information, but you know,
Yeah.
there's a little more to it, so it could be a little bit of background.
Okay.
But
All right, well, thank you. That kind of helps us put that in perspective.
and we can always, as we discuss the scheduling on the July meeting, there's some other options there too, so.
Okay.
Also under my report, there's a lot of history with the Mr. Newt that stopped in earlier, and if JJ can share some past.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. JJ can share with you all, he'll send you an email on your past correspondence with him. You know, doing this affidavit, that doesn't prove he received it either, it's just another staff person saying, yes, JJ sent, I witnessed JJ doing the letter and sending it.
But the bottom line is he's got.
Bottom line is
vote.
there's a complaint that comes out, and at that point, JJ goes out there to measure, and it's already at that 12-inch mark, and you know he's basically been pushing it to the limit every time he gets he waits till he gets a letter.
Yeah.
And the issue with the email is the ordinance doesn't say he gets a notice, but if we start doing that, and then because we'll also have to send a letter still. And then JJ forgets to email, and he's like, well, you always emailed me.
Yep.
But we're not required to. Yes, ma'am?
So, we followed is this a village ordinance, or is this a village ordinance,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Right.
And we followed the village ordinance.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know, in my mind, it seems like it's not appropriate for every person in the village to be paying toward someone who did not cut his grass. I mean, since we followed the village ordinance.
And what he was referring to at the committee level, yeah, it's true. It's not. It's kind of the first step, but there isn't any mechanism for staff or a committee to, pay him back or to say he doesn't have to pay the fine. So ultimately, the board could, but as Mick suggested, that would be a bad precedent, and it's just a repeat offender.
The point is, if the guy would cut the grass on a regular basis, we wouldn't be talking about this.
Exactly, it's not his first rodeo.
Yeah, so I would just, can we send a letter out to him recommending that he cuts the grass before it gets to the stage where he gets an invoice in the mail?
We've had that discussion with him, yes.
I mean, this is not complicated at all, I don't think.
Right. But I just wanted to confirm that there's a lot of history to it. It's not just one time. Like,
no, this has been a
We're
one-time thing.
trying to make it as economic a decision as possible, because you start sending certified letters. I've done a lot of collection work. That's never a great way to do it. Then are we going to have the police department serving? I mean, are we going to have the cops tied up doing those kinds of, it's just, at some point, when we talked about it, we said, well, okay, the story of, well, I didn't get it. Well, if we have someone from the village that says, I put this in the mail, I sent it to them, then, the burden will shift to him.
I'm fine with the affidavit of service. That's
JJ has records of the letters. I mean,
So what he does is he waits till he gets a letter, calls the service, has him go out there and mow it, in a nutshell.
Yeah,
If he'd have a service go out there once every 3 weeks.
And we have a duty to the rest of the property owners to keep the properties looking well, and at 12 inches, it's already looking bad.
It's already a hayfield.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's
okay.
Not the most exciting report, I'm sorry.
All right. Okay, I guess we're back to 8D then. Discuss and consider canceling or rescheduling the July 3rd, 2017 board meeting. We do have a meeting for the 17th of July, so if we did one on the 10th, which is also a Monday, we'd have them back to back, or we could cancel it.
If there's an issue with rejecting this bid, if we had a quorum and we could meet on the 6th of July, it's a pretty light meeting night, if that's necessary for the purposes of that bid.
Would that work for people if we have to?
But I'm not aware of any other
Otherwise, I'm
upcoming
fine.
items that are urgent enough that.
Well, they have to really kind of do the specs anyway, and it sounded like it would be better for MSA and for whoever's bidding on it, give enough time to do so. Because they're going to, those folks that are bidding on it are also going to probably be taking time away.
Yeah.
So I would just assume we just
Just cancel
Cancel
the July 4th, or July 3rd meeting.
I'll be unavailable for the 17th, but.
Okay. All right, would the July 17th work for everybody else, the regular scheduled meeting?
We'll still have a quorum.
Yeah, the next village board meeting would be July 17th then.
I will be here too as well.
Well,
I'm not going with you.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, maybe
All
we're
right,
about
as long as we can get four to show up, we're good.
Are
I
you going to
guess.
Mexico by any chance?
Well, I'm going north.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Canada. That's right, you said that.
All right, so I guess I would make a motion to cancel the July 3rd regularly scheduled board meeting and take up our business on the 17th.
Second.
It's a quorum.
Okay? Motion and a second to cancel the July 3rd meeting and wait until the 17th for the regular meeting. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion passes. All right, we're down to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. We have emergency government first.
We met Wednesday, June 7th. We went over, what do we want to call it, the tabletop exercise. Kevin Wernett with the Wisconsin Emergency Government gave us an overview, kind of what we did, strengths and weaknesses. Strengths where Cottage Grove has a dedicated EOC and Cottage Grove and a standing committee of work on emergency government plans, policies, and procedures, so we're doing good. There are some areas of improvement. In one area in particular is the town and village both need to go through our ordinances and policies to ensure they align with Wisconsin Chapter 323. And what Chapter 323 does is in case of emergency, it allows us the committee some buying if they need any special equipment, supplies, that kind of thing, without having to go through the normal purchasing process. So we've got until the end of August to get that taken care of. We need to develop a better media plan and how to handle media in the event of some sort of emergency. Other than that, I think that we're ahead of the game versus most communities, which is good. We do have another exercise coming up on not our normal night, so the next meeting really will be a functional exercise on July 12th. It's designed to validate and evaluate capabilities, multiple functions and or sub-functions, independent groups of functions. It's a pretty big event. Highly encourage anybody that's here on the board attend. Again, we're hoping there's not an event or any reason to activate the EOC, but we'd like to be prepared in the event that it is. And I know there's another meeting going on that night, unfortunately, this meeting coincides with, but we have to have some commitment towards this in the event that we do have something happen.
Troy, is there a time frame for, the board hasn't seen that there's a draft plan that the committee's been working on over the years, and but not anything that's ever been reviewed or approved by the board?
There is a draft that's been out for a while.
Yeah.
It was back in, I think Diane Wiedenbeck was actually on the village president at the time.
Right. It's never made its way to the board.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's still being fine-tuned at this point.
Okay.
I mean, I can get you a copy. Everybody should have a copy of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same draft that the town has, I guess.
Yeah, the town and village, it's yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, just get that, I guess that's where we'll start and see what that says.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Community Development Authority, that, Nick.
I'm going to speak next, so.
Okay.
You can't fight it over, right?
The Community Development Authority met on the 12th, and we are working through the comprehensive plan, the update, and Aaron's been guiding us through that process and putting a lot of effort and time into it. We were discussing the economic development section of the plan, and Aaron's going to be bringing back some additional information on that, I think, at our next meeting. And I think the plan is by the end of the year, we hope to have the updated comp plan ready for review.
Okay. And when it's approved, does it get published somewhere with the county or the state, or just it's in our archive? How does it?
we're required to, there's a whole list of places we have to send it and then
Okay.
we'll put it on our website.
All right,
Like, a little like we,
yeah. All right. Sounds good, thanks, Mick. Utility Commission?
I was not able to attend, but Jack, you, I think, were in my stay, so.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, that was
Public Works.
Public Works.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
right.
We didn't have a quorum with Public Works, but utility, we had an update right after the pre-construction meeting about well one. We said hopefully it will be happening this week. And then I presented the CMAR, the compliance report for the sanitary sewer utility to the committee. We got 4.0 again, and they were happy, so I submitted that to the DNR. We'll see if there's any comments. It sometimes takes a few months.
Okay.
But typically we do really well on that. And otherwise, the biggest thing was we set a date for the next meeting will be the 26th of July, because Vicki from Baker Tilly is going to attend and talk through the rate impact of a couple projects that are lined up.
Okay.
So then we'll
For sewer.
for the sewer utility. I'll be bringing a report back after that.
Sounds good. Thank you. Deer Grove EMS.
Okay, so we met last week on the June 15th, went through the financial records and everything, nothing unusual there. The run rates for the year are actually up year over year, so that means the ambulances are moving around a bit more, which is probably not good in general, but that also means the revenue's up for the service. So the second new ambulance is just going through its final punch list. The first one is already in service. The second one will be shortly. They had both of them down at Fireman's Park. I've been inside one of them, fortunately not for anything but to look inside them. They're very nice. They're great for certainly those that are fortunate enough to ride in them, as well as the staff from a safety perspective, much better. They're getting used to where things are placed and probably sort things through there. We did sell the old Lifeline to a municipality in Iowa. They're very happy with it. We got more than we anticipated, so that offset some additional costs that were for the ambulances, for the two ambulances that kind of came in last minute. There is still a discussion about the regionalization. We've lined up somebody from the UW to help with that at no cost to the district. The RFP is still out, so we're waiting for responses for that. Again, the state continues to encourage this. We've seen a number of districts disband, and particularly, unfortunately, in the north. So this is something we're all going to be faced with, particularly as volunteers become harder and harder to find for these types of services. So again, long-range plan, whether or not we do it, also long-range. It's not anything that will happen 3 to 5 years, and the only reason I think the district would do it for better service and lower costs. So, and then we tabled the honorary membership discussion, and that was pretty much it. Next meeting is July 20th.
Okay.
And then
Anything else?
I'll mention one thing that our EMS chief, and he sent out an email today indicating that he's going to be leaving the organization about October. He hasn't turned in his official resignation, but wanted to give us a heads up on that.
Okay. So, all right. Moving elsewhere, just moving on?
He's going to have his own business.
Yeah.
I forget what he was going to call it.
Some kind of nutritional clinic thing.
Okay.
So
Who's this?
the
EMS chief?
EMS chief.
Dwayne Urshel.
Yeah,
And again, he hasn't officially turned his resignation.
that's
but
why I
he just-
wasn't really going to say anything. But
He's making us aware of it. He did send out an email
Yeah.
officially to everybody today,
Okay.
basically stating that, so.
All right. Thank you. That is all we have for committee commission reports at this point. Reports from village officers, Troy?
No report.
Okay, Mick?
no report?
All right, Forrest?
No report.
James?
No report.
Okay, Larry?
No report.
John, anything?
I think there were a lot of folks that went down to the Fireman's Park and enjoyed the festivals last weekend, so that was great. That's all I have to say, and we served up a bunch of pancakes from the Lions on Sunday morning. So,
All right. Under my report, you'll see there's discuss and consider appointments to committees, and I have some updated spreadsheets here to you. This is a little bit of a work in progress since Mick was a citizen member of both Plan and CDA. Now he's a trustee, so now we have effectively citizen openings on those committees because I've asked him to serve on Plan and CDA and stay on there and keep his experience on there. And Jennifer Pickle, if you remember her, has offered to do the citizen opening on Plan, but we still have a vacancy on CDA for a citizen member, if you know of anybody. They can't be a trustee, but we still have an opening. So I will give you folks copies of the updated sheets, and I guess there'll be a further updated coming if I can find somebody for CDA.
I spoke with somebody at the festival on Sunday, and she was going to send in
Okay.
a letter of, what her qualifications are
Okay.
and such. So
I did have somebody that was interested in Parks and Rec too, and I'll back and ask them about CDA. I mean, it was, it's just, you gotta find citizen members. Yep. So, and then if you would, just look under your committees and just verify that you got the right committees, because there was a little bit of a juggling act, obviously, when Harvey left, so. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I'll get this updated with Lisa, and we'll go from there.
On the emergency government, actually, Mike Fonger is committee chair now. It's switched to the...
Yeah, to Troy's point, my emergency government alternates years. The town or the village is the chairperson, so it's actually Mike Fonger, but his information is also on there, so.
Yeah.
But just Mike instead of Troy this year. That is all I have. Attorney Lee Boucher?
Well, I have for you a response from Mr. Rydell, in addition to what he had written before. And I guess from the tone of the letter, I would say that he was unhappy with with me in particular and the board in general. But he did thank me for sending him the correct statute. And he does feel that we are morally irresponsible. But honestly, setting aside kind of the rhetoric, it's one of those situations where if you did anything but follow through with the denial of the claim by the insurance company, you'd be opening yourself up for anyone saying, well, okay, so what? I know that in the past that you ignored the recommendation of the insurance company. So I had written to him, he wrote back, and this is a copy of what we received.
Okay, and I guess it's up to him if he wants to pursue anything further. We don't need to spend any more time on it.
No.
Okay. And I'm fine with Lee's response. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, anything else, Lee?
No.
All right, Matt, anything else?
No.
All right, Aaron? Okay, Chief Labor, anything?
We had a relatively quiet Fireman's Festival weekend, which we were very happy for, so.
It's always a good thing.
Everybody was behaving.
Okay.
Or everybody that we observed.
All right. JJ, Public Works, anything?
Nope.
Okay, Sean?
Nope.
All right. Yeah, you the last? Okay. Awesome. All right. That brings us down to communications and miscellaneous vouchers or miscellaneous business, rather. Consider approval of vouchers. Any questions on the vouchers? I didn't see anything that stood out at me, but if anybody has anything. If there are no questions, I'll move to approve vouchers as presented.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve vouchers as presented. Any other discussion or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, motion passes. Correspondence, I don't think we have anything official. All right. Future agenda items, I guess for the 19th, we talked about the report from staff on the marketing of the property, and blanking on the other thing we forwarded.
Well, there may be some carryover from the plan commission on outlots.
Correct. Okay, plan commission on the outlot policy. Okay.
The school road and intersection.
Yep, that's it. Okay, because that's a big ticket item. And my question on that, Matt, is the TIF district was supposed to pay for that?
Yeah,
And
the borrowing's already,
okay,
that took place earlier this year in conjunction with the Seldal plat.
okay,
And so, you know, that's what their estimates were at the time and what was approved for the project.
Sure.
So I think part of it, the explanation that Brad gave, plus the aspect of only getting one bid probably hurt things, you know, that there wasn't competition, so.
okay.
But yeah, it's an approved project, borrowed for,
Yep.
and it'll be paid back via TID 5.
Okay. All right, anything else for future agenda items? Otherwise, that brings us down to item 11. Anybody want to go home? Motion to adjourn, anybody?
Motion adjourned.
Second. Motion and second to adjourn, non-debatable. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.